What are stakes and sacrifice, and how do they work together?
Oh, that's a good question. So commonly we think about stakes in your story as the consequence or the thing that will happen if your character fails to achieve their goal, right? So like we were talking about in Bridesmaids, if Kristen Wiig fails at being her best friend's maid of honor, then her friendship will probably fail, or her friendship's at stake, so her friendship will take a hit, right? She may lose her best friend. So that's what's at stake, is her friendship with Lillian. Sacrifice is sort of a story nerd distinction to look at, because you can kind of lump all of these things together. But sacrifice is what your character, it's sort of the cost of participation of your character taking on this goal or this task that they're trying to do, right? So the cost of participation tells us how important a goal is to someone if they're really willing to sacrifice a lot in order to pursue this thing, right? So Bridesmaids isn't a great example, but just say that in order to go for the Olympic gold, I have to give up my family, my girlfriend, my job, all this stuff. Those are all cost of participation things. Those are all sacrifices that I'm making in order to pursue this goal. What's at stake if I don't win the gold is perhaps my Olympic gymnastics career, right? So those are two different things. So my career's at stake, that is hanging in the balance, but the sacrifices that I'm making are separate from that. However, the sacrifices can help me see how important this goal is to this character, because I'm willing to sacrifice all that stuff in pursuit of it. The challenge with sacrifice is making sure that the sacrifice isn't so big and unwarranted that the audience then thinks your character's stupid, right? Because if they're giving up all this stuff and it feels like, but they're giving up all this stuff for what? For this goal that, to enter the town race to win a new griddle or something, like that doesn't seem like it's worth giving up all this stuff. So your audience won't get on board with your character pursuing a goal that doesn't seem to warrant all the sacrifice that they're making. An example that I always use is The Ring. So The Ring is about a woman who watches a cursed videotape, and then she has 7 days to solve the mystery of this curse in order to stop it and save her life, right? So what's at stake in that pursuit is her life. We know that her life is hanging in the balance. If she fails at achieving that goal, she's going to die. The sacrifices that she makes in pursuit of that goal include spending less time with her son. So we know that this saving her life is very important to her, not only to save her life, right, life and death, but also because she's a single mom and she doesn't want to leave her son an orphan, right? But so she's sacrificing time with him, time that could make her feel like a good mom, attentive mom, but she has to make that sacrifice in order to pursue the goal, because the goal is so important to her, because the stakes are so big. Does that kind of make sense?
It does. Okay. What do you think 99% of screenwriters get wrong with their screenplays?
One of the biggest things that I see as issues in scripts that I read, right? So I don't know if it's 99% of screenwriters get this wrong, but I will say it is very common, is not building the stakes properly so that the audience is invested. So it could be an exciting story, but we'll only go along so long with, somebody trying to do something if we don't understand why they're doing it or what it means to them, right? So building the stakes of showing us, not only what happens if they fail to achieve this goal, but also why does that matter? Why is it so important to them? What does that mean to them internally? Sort of all of those questions are really what get us emotionally invested, right? So if we look at the movie Bridesmaids again, her goal is to be her best friend's maid of honor. What's at stake is externally is her friendship. We know that the friendship is kind of the last good thing she has in her life. And if she fails at being her best friend's, if she fails at pulling off this sort of like maid of honor duty for her best friend on her most important day, right, that their friendship is going to suffer. So that's what's at stake for her. However, there's also a deeper internal thing that means for the protagonist. Her friendship being the last good thing that she has in her life speaks to her self-worth. She has essentially failed in all other aspects of her life. If she fails at this, she will have proven she's not a good enough friend. She can't keep up with where her friend is sort of going in her life, right? Like her friend is kind of moving into this rich people's world and adult world. She's getting married. She's going to have a real, like, you know, house and husband and, and all this stuff. So all of that kind of speaks to how Annie, the Kristen Wiig character, feels about herself. If she fails at doing this, it will say something about her as a person. So that, you know, setting up those, like, or helping the audience understand the deeper meaning behind the stakes. It's great to have external concrete stakes that we can see because we're watching movies, right? But helping the audience understand what it really means and why that meaning is so important to the character, I would say that's one of the biggest things that people miss when they're writing scripts.
So do you think maybe a lot of people might have a clear goal for their character and that we see that this character wants it at all costs, but we're not seeing the little sub things in their lives that will suffer if they don't get it, and all the things they have to sacrifice or do or compromise?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of people understand that they need stakes in their story. There needs to be some consequence for failure, right? Otherwise, why is this character doing this thing? But I think the thing that a lot of people miss is tying those stakes to a deeper meaning. So it's not just an external thing. It's not just, because when you're dealing with things that aren't life and death, it's even more important to go into the why behind it, right? That letting us know, why does it matter? Who cares if this character fails at being a maid of honor? Who cares, right? Those external stakes, we get them and we see them, but they only get us emotionally invested because we understand what they mean to the protagonist. So that's the part, you know, and that's the hard thing to do, which is probably why it's missed a lot. So.
Right, I'm thinking of, let's say, Lady Bird. We talked about that. So if the main character, she grew up, I think, in Sacramento, but she felt like she grew up on the wrong side of the tracks where all her friends maybe were a little more affluent, and she's always wanted to kind of prove that she belonged in that world, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so even though she has this like loving family at home, it's to her, she just wants to be accepted in the friendship world.
So I think if I remember right, her goal in that movie, like the actual sort of external goal that we're kind of like hanging the plot on, like the structure of the movie, I think it was getting accepted into an East Coast school. Was that right?
Right. And then the mom's like, well, you're just going to go to community college. And,
Right. And so if we just say that's her goal, and I can't remember for sure if this is exactly the way the movie was structured, but if we say that's her goal, is like she's pursuing getting accepted to an East Coast school. If she fails at getting accepted to an East Coast school, she's going to have to go to Sacramento State and prove her mom right? So that's kind of the external stakes. But what does that mean to her internally? I would say it would, to her, going off of what you said, it would prove that she isn't as good as those kids that she wants to fit in with, or maybe that she'll never be anything more than, you know, the surroundings that she grew up in, right? Which for most of the movie she sees as not good enough. Right. I think by the end she comes around to sort of appreciating the upbringing she had and where she came from, right? But for most of the movie she feels like this is a very important goal to her because she's trying to leave this behind, and if she can't do that, it will basically prove that she fits in here at this place that she doesn't think is good enough, you know?
Right, okay.
Yeah, and I think actually that's what a lot of people related to, because it's that internal feeling of like, I think a lot of people can relate to that, like wanting to sort of get out of the town that you were raised in, right? And then maybe relating even to the eventual feeling of like, oh, it wasn't so bad. I actually kind of appreciate that.
Right, or growing up in a town where there's like a divide in access to different things, and wanting to go with the cool kids that seemed like they had everything and they had the big house, and her feeling like she was less than because her parents, even though hardworking, or I know the dad was out of work for a while, but you know, especially the mom, you know, was a nurse or whatever, and feeling like, well, it wasn't glamorous enough. Yeah. And she wanted to be a new...
Yeah, she wanted to be this other person, right? And I think failing at that goal, kind of what was internally at stake for her was proving that she couldn't be that other person. She couldn't be more than I guess she was born into, you know?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.